So the question is, you've said that many companies are guilty of Kaizen event malpractice. What did you mean by that, and how can I tell if I'm at a company that's guilty of Kaizen event malpractice?
So I'm going to steal the mic. From a malpractice standpoint, if we were talking about the symptoms of malpractice, certainly, if we look at the effectiveness from the achievement of measurable objectives, that's certainly one. Sustainability is another one. Actually having events that are pulled by what matters, because there's always a risk of just the old kamikaze Kaizen or popcorn Kaizen. And then, while that might be the measurable stuff around things like quality, delivery, and cost, like anything, and this kind of ties to the LEI transformation model, right? We've got the two pillars, and one's really oriented to, process or improving the work, and then the other one's capability. So, a symptom, certainly from a poorly applied Kaizen, is that we're not engaging the people and we're not building their capability. In other words, they're not learning. So those are really some good symptoms, I think, for malpractice. And just keep in mind that Kaizen events are just a vehicle, one of a handful of vehicles for continuous improvement. And like anything, you can misapply any vehicle or tool and thereby have malpractice.
Another question is, how do you're running a Kaizen event? How do you make the Kaizen events fit in with daily? How do they fit in with daily Kaizen activity?
Okay, excellent question. So, again, relative to the vehicles, Kaizen True North is really predominantly daily Kaizen. So quality circles, suggestion systems, that type of stuff, and the mix ends up essentially becoming less and less Kaizen events. But the Kaizen events they're really good for doing big stuff and doing it quickly. And with that, it helps develop people's hands-on application of PDCA, and it also kind of sets up that ecosystem in which people can then apply daily Kaizen. So, for example, especially in a somewhat immature value stream, those initial Kaizen events are establishing flow, they're establishing pull, they're developing standardized work and putting that in place. And then when you start adding visual controls, visual management, now you've set kind of the table for people to be able to tell at a glance whether they have a normal condition or an abnormal condition, and that gap is, that's a problem, right? So now we can start applying daily Kaizen because we do now have that ecosystem, if you will, along with obviously, good problem-solving coaching to get there. So that's really, I think, a key way of looking at Kaizen events and how that helps feed daily Kaizen.
Thanks. By the way, you mentioned the importance of visual management as part of the ecosystem. You see a lot of Kaizen events. Can you offer some tips about what mistakes should we look out for in our visual management approaches? What do you see that people struggle with or maybe don't get right?
Sure. So, as we think about, I think it gets back to sustainability from the gains that we identify and actually implement within in the Kaizen event. And we should keep in mind that with every technical change we make, we should be changing the management system. Otherwise, we won't get that sustainability. So while Kaizen is largely about PDCA, without SDCA, or Standardized Do Check Act, we can't sustain it. It ends up kind of being a lame act, if you will. So, this is where the visual management will come into play. So we got to consider, okay, from the building of this particular value stream and establishing the standards, this is the system that we have designed. We want to make sure that this thing works. So like anything, we want to pull from need, right? So the need here is to understand where perhaps we have an abnormal condition. So that abnormality is going to get answered by building effective visual controls. Right?
Okay. By the way, I had heard of kamikaze Kaizen, but popcorn Kaizen is a new one. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think the notion there is they just kind of pop up, right?
So,
just add some heat and they start popping, and it's like, yeah, we'll do one over here, we'll do one over there, etc.
Now, you facilitate a workshop that's called, strangely enough, How to Manage Kaizen Events. Can you tell us what's in that will help us run better events?
All right. So during the workshop, and nominally it's 2 days. We've also done it on via web. So it's really, first, what are the kind of the roots of Kaizen? So we'll talk through that a bit. We'll get into the lean leader's role within Kaizen, and more specifically within Kaizens. We'll talk about the strategy portion. So if we were to boil down effective Kaizen events into kind of some standardized work, there's a bunch of specificity around what we should be doing in terms of kind of the strategic nature. How is this getting pulled? Is it getting pulled by value stream improvement plans, strategy A3s, problem A3s, or whatever? And then we get into the whole pre-planning activity. Most people think, Kaizen events, it's the 3 days, the 4 days, or the 5 days where people are doing a bunch of stuff. And really you end up, losing it. You end up really starting the malpractice if you're not doing the first couple phases effectively. And then obviously we get into the Kaizen event execution itself, and then the follow-up, which is equally as important.
Okay, Mark, sounds like a thorough workshop, and thanks a lot for sharing some of your insights today.
My pleasure, Chet. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.